Yes, sir. Good morning, ma'am. How are you, doctor?
Fine,
Good to see you.
I'm not jumping out of any
All right.
perfectly good planes, though. Thank you.
As long as they've got gas in them and they're flying, I agree with you 100%. But at her age, she just needed, I guess, a little excitement in her life. Recent approval of the COVID vaccine to be given to infants and toddlers is now approved. Are they ready for the vaccinations in our hospitals and doctors' offices and other places in the state of Mississippi?
It was approved Friday. We were actually putting an order in for our COVID vaccines on Friday, and the mechanism is not going to be there till this week to get the 6-month to 5-year version, but we will be ordering it. One of the nice things that I do want to mention, but this is mostly a thing for physicians, is that before now, you had to order through a special program, but now you can order through Mix, which is our usual ordering process for vaccine for children. So when we order all our other vaccines, we can order that too, which really makes a big difference for physicians' offices. But we're going to get it.
Yeah. Is there an ample supply of that, or is it going to be rationed out as a shortage at first? But is there enough vaccines to go around for the population of the state of Mississippi?
There's enough vaccines. I think, there'll be enough vaccine. We'll offer it. I hope that parents will understand that it is helpful to protect their children. 6 months to 5 they've not had the opportunity to have a vaccine. We know COVID is still out there. It's still causing disease. And some people say, well, why should I vaccinate my 6-month-old or my 12-month-old? Well, one of the reasons we know that we have extended family, even if you're not in the same household with grandparents and older folks, you visit them a lot. And, we want to protect everybody with that. The other thing that parents do need to understand is that there's still very little in the way of treatment for children who get COVID. Now, having said that, I would like to share with your listeners, Paul, that we physicians are now very much interested in making sure that if you have COVID, that you can get treatment. There are oral antivirals that are available. There's still some monoclonal antibodies, but that does require going to the physician's office. But there are antivirals that are available for people over age 12 who weigh more than 88 pounds. And that's been a game changer. I mean, that's something that can be, called in. You can start taking it. It's similar to people being familiar with Tamiflu. Is it kind of like
that's what I was going to ask you, kind of like Tamiflu or something like that?
Yeah. Again, I will say, no, it's a pill.
Pill.
Only a pill. What I was going to say was...
Go ahead. That's okay. We have a little delay, but go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say was that it's still not as good as taking the vaccine. I've been a pediatrician now for 40 years. I've watched diseases disappear because of vaccines. It makes your body, it's the quickest way to defend against any disease, because as soon as the body sees that particular germ is there, it starts to fight it off. And antivirals are great. We're going to use them. But there's nothing like getting a head start and hopefully not having serious illness.
Do you, I've never been a hypocrite on this, and I talk about hypocrisy a lot, so I have to be front with you and honest. I have more reservations about this age group than I have anybody else. I mean, I fully have been in since vaccinations. I thought it was a great idea, and the longer we went in here, I think a lot of people's scope of responsibility and common sense went certainly toward the people who were 55 or older, and you hear more and more data on that one, or anybody else who has any underlying conditions, regardless of their age. And I understand that one. But I was looking at data, and I was listening to a lot over the weekend, and there were people, Rand Paul was one, asking Dr. Fauci about this. What is the data on this? Are you comfortable we have enough data on kids at least 6 months old as far as the after effects on this one? as
well,
far as the boosters, as far as the shots are concerned?
Well, what I would say to that is this is a very, very bad disease. I mean, there's nobody, I think, that can argue about that. The vaccines have been tested, and they would not have been approved if they weren't. Are there side effects from the vaccines? Not likely any more than any other vaccine that we give. Are there side effects from your 6, 7, 8-month-old getting COVID? Probably. We don't even know what those are in the long term. I just truly do believe that we would not have approved this for this age group if it were not safe and effective.
When you say approved, this has been approved by the manufacturers or the FDA, or the FDA relying on the manufacturers to approve it?
What happens, Paul, in any new development of a vaccine, and this has been going on for 2 years now. Remember, the first, when it first came out, nobody less than age 15 or 18, depending on whether you got Pfizer or Moderna, were able to take it. Not because they couldn't, because it hadn't been tested. They tested it for the group. They tested it for adults because they really wanted to push it out for the folks 65 and older who were tremendously affected by this. There's a process. You go through studies. There's phases of your studies. You get volunteers. You see what their side effects are. You go through all of this process, and the manufacturer does it. The pharmaceutical company does it, but this is overseen by the FDA. The recommendations. There's a specific panel that always looks at the data and makes a recommendation about whether or not to approve it. So this is done through the same process that we've done for every other vaccine.
When you look at, we're talking about 6 months old, is that in combination with the other shots that should they get them at the same time? Because I'm not sure. It's been a long time since I've had a 6-month-old, but those series of shots that you get, would this shot be recommended to get with the other shots at the same time?
To be honest, I have not seen that, whether or not you should. There shouldn't be any contraindication. Now, I would not have any problem with parents saying, no, well, let's just do our regular childhood vaccinations, and I'll come back in 3 weeks and get that. We don't have a problem with that. As a matter of fact, in my office, because of staffing issues, we are only giving the COVID vaccines like every 3 weeks. I mean, we just don't. That's just how we have to do it, just for staffing issues. So it's likely that when your child comes in at 6 months of age, they may not even be able to get it that day because that's not what we're giving it. So,
do you have? I'm just curious about this. Do you have any data that people could look at specifically for the state of Mississippi, but if not for the nation, on the mortality or hospitalization of COVID from kids who are 6 months old or maybe a year old in that area? Can you hold on for a moment? I'll ask you about that one when we come back in just a moment. We are with the good doctor, pediatrician, president of Mississippi State Medical Association. Back with Dr. Geri Weiland, who is the pediatrician and president of Mississippi State Medical Association. Again, the questions that I'm asking, or a lot of parents asking, certainly on C-Spire. But do we have any data for us to, look at as far as hospitalization for, let's say, 6 months old to maybe toddlers, not only those who have contracted COVID, but hospitalizations and mortality? Are there any numbers that you guys are working with there?
Their numbers, Paul, I don't have them. These numbers would be at the Children's Hospital mostly, because that's where most of the admissions were. Dr. Charlotte Hobbs has always been very helpful with that sort of information. Yes, we do have hospitalizations. Luckily, there's not a lot in the way of deaths. What I want folks to understand is, we know how deadly the Delta variant was last summer and fall, and it was especially a problem for young adults and people who were not vaccinated. When the Omicron variant came along, it changed a lot, and Delta was much more of a lower respiratory pneumonia sort of infection, and Omicron was more of an upper respiratory infection, croup, that sort of thing, which is not as bad for adults because we have larger airways, but for children that became more of an issue. We saw more of the problems with airways, especially in children because their airways are so small. The data's out there. I'm sorry, I don't have it.
Is there any movement with the Medical Association to, and I'm not sure if this is a legislative mandate or not, to make it mandatory along with other vaccines for kids to get in school?
No, this would not. There's not. I don't think there's going to be any mandate or mandatory for COVID vaccine. There are only a few vaccines that are required to attend public school, and even less to attend college if you've homeschooled and then just go to college. So I don't see that in the near future. I mean, it'd be like, I don't see that happening.
Well, that's good news. Have you got a lot on your plate here, but has monkeypox showed up? And certainly, is that a worry about small kids? I don't think it is, but from the good doctor yourself, what's the word on monkeypox?
We don't need monkeypox. I mean, just one more thing we don't need. There hasn't been a case in Mississippi yet. There is a vaccine against monkeypox. I'm not taking it yet. So, I mean, I'm not taking it yet.
If you give your child this vaccine, is there a need for a booster later on?
You're not back to talking about COVID vaccine.
Yes. We're putting monkeypox back.
Yeah, monkeypox.
Over there.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
good.
Let's forget about monkeypox.
Yeah. At this point, at this point, you would receive just the initial series. With Pfizer, that's going to be 3 shots, and Moderna, that's going to be 2 shots. But what we have seen, Paul, is that they collect the data. How is your immune status? 6 months from now, is it waning enough to require one? So that's going to be an ongoing thing.
So, in other words, it's not going to be one and done. It will be a series of shots as far as the whether it's Pfizer or Moderna.
Correct.
Okay.
Just like for the adults, it's for children. In Moderna, it's 2. Pfizer, it's 3. It's just the way they set
Doctor,
it up. It's a very small amount. It's only the amount is 1/10 of the adult dose for the 6 to 5 years of age, and then just a little bit more. I believe it's 1/3 from the 5 to 11 year of age.
Yeah. Do we have a track record that if the variant changes, that the original inoculation, the original vaccine, is still worth it and is still protective?
Right. That's where we are right now. Omicron is so much different than the original variant, and yet we are finding that there's protection. Now, again, there was better protection before the mutations, but it's still preventing serious illness, hospitalization, ICU admissions, and death.
As far as you know, from the the Mississippi Medical Association, are we seeing the same variant across the state now, or is it a multitude of different things? But is it one variant of Omicron now?
According to
responsible
Dr.
for most of the
Byers,
cases,
and yes, we're still with one of the Omicron variants.
With a name on the end of it, so there've been so many of those. But what's the forecast for the summer and fall? Has anybody had any forecast that this is going to increase by fall?
Well, we're already seeing some increases. I mean, that we've gone up to 1,000 cases a day. Luckily, not very many deaths. So
one more question, real quick.
Increases.
Are these vaccinations available at places like Walgreens and other places, or only at the doctor's office?
Walgreens, pharmacies, doctor's offices, just the same places they've been getting.
I thank you so very much for taking the time and answering some hard questions. Appreciate it very much.